All right. I think it's rolling, huh?
I hope so. I think so.
Was I just finishing a sip of bubbly water? Maybe.
Possibly so.
I don't know if it'd be an episode of Talk Openly without bubbly water.
Oh my gosh, bubbly water and tea.
There you go. Yeah. Hey, your mug, Daniel. Um,
It's a
uh,
happy mug.
it's good for tonight. Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
for not wearing your happy mug, bringing your happy mug.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, we're going to be talking in our second half of the show tonight about this article that I read in the New York Times Magazine this weekend called Our Idea of Happiness Has Gotten Shallow. Here's How to Deepen It. And I just thought it was like a good jumping off point for conversation and yeah, doing a little bit of thinking about what happiness is um, and specifically as that relates to our culture and environment right now. So yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Heck yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
always a good time to talk about happiness and how to achieve it.
absolutely. Yeah, and if I didn't say, my name's Jac. This is Talk Openly, Lions or Dharma Center's podcast show. And yeah, so happy to be back.
Yeah. I'm happy to be with you, Jack.
Yeah, same. Well, Daniel, what's up with you? What's going on in your world?
Just running around like a chicken with my head cut off,
Yeah,
Yeah.
as one
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. Kind of wild, kind of crazy. No, things are pretty good though, like busy in all aspects, but fulfilling, satisfying, content, Like it's
Nice.
nice. Yeah. I like it. It's been going on for like a couple of weeks now. I dig it. I'm really doing what Tenzin Choki calls savoring the okay.
Ah, ooh.
Yeah.
That seems very relevant for tonight's
It's
conversation.
totally relevant to tonight's conversation.
Yeah.
It turns
Could you,
out, yeah,
yeah.
being okay is a big part of the ingredients for happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. So, maybe describe a little bit more like what okay is right now.
Okay is really just like this baseline that's not totally neutral. Like it's like an emotional sort of psychological spiritual whatever that is like imagine like there's the baseline that's like neutral and it's just flat, right? And then on the x-axis right,
Yeah.
and then there's like like one little notch above that, maybe two, maybe like one and a half, somewhere around there. It's like not super far off of neutral, but it's like in the positive zone. And you
Yeah.
can just imagine like if you were watching like a graph of like it would just be like flat kind of, and then it's like it kind of goes up and it dips and it up and it dips just a little bit, and
Yeah.
not like super erratic, not super high, not so it doesn't vary much from that baseline, And it's just like it's chill the way that I've always wanted to be chill. So
Mm,
that even when shit's flying in my face, like I'm chill, but I'm not zoned out. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like I'm present, I'm aware, like I'm taking it all in and I'm responding to it. But it's not like causing high highs and low lows. It's just sort of pretty even keel. I think the sort of the word that we might use for it is like equanimous.
Mm,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And our friend Connor gave a talk on Sunday that I felt was really helpful
Oh, I didn't
on
get to hear Connor's talk.
yeah. Oh, it was good. It was about boredom.
Right.
And I definitely recommend listening to it when it gets posted to YouTube. Um, but I'm feeling like this is maybe a little bit different from boredom. Would you say? Or is there
Oh, it's way different than boredom.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
bored, not at
yeah,
all. No, no,
yeah.
no. No, but bored there is some I think there's some like similarities between them, you know. Sort of the boredom though tends to have a little bit of like agitation, like wanting something maybe a little bit different, like I'm not stimulated, right? And I,
Yeah.
I don't have those high highs, right? They're not like so that's boredom for sure. But I like kind of saying like I'm hella busy. I got all kinds of stuff capturing my, like wake up early and I'm going, 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 and it's just full and it's crazy and it's wild, right? But it's not overwhelming, it's not underwhelming. It's just sort of like whatever's happening, you know? It's
Yeah,
chill. It's chill.
very cool. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear that.
I like it. It's new for me. I don't know if I said this last week or not. I can't remember. But I had this experience that was kind of fun. Did I tell you this already? I was at Expressions one night. It was like last Friday, I guess it was.
Huh?
Or maybe it was the Friday before. I can't remember. Anyway, Matthew Cruz, our friend, came up to me and
Yes.
he says, "Hey, how you doing?" And I was like, I'd already answered this question a few times, and I was like, just, and I described it. I'm like exactly the way I'm describing it too. Like it's just this, like it's just is like it's pleasant, but not, not like radically, wild and crazy. It just is, whatever. And as I described it, he looks at me, and goes, "It's good to be home, isn't it?"
Huh.
And I've been reflecting on that, ever since he said it, where I'm like, yeah, man, like that feel, yes, yes.
Hmm.
It feels good to
Mm-hmm.
be home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, isn't that's a I love that. That's beautiful. I have to think about it, it's
Yeah.
one to chew on, huh?
Yeah, I have been chewing on it since you said it, and I couldn't agree. I think he totally nailed it. I think he got where I was coming from, and what he was, it was resonating. He was like, yeah, it feels good, right? Like to
Yeah.
be back to that place. Like it's kind of like this long trip. We're going to talk about this search for happiness and how it can go to these extremes, right? And I've definitely done that over my life. And this is a different sort of experience,
Mhm.
like it does feel sort of like being home after a long trip, where you just sort of like, ah,
Yeah.
like you just like, yeah, sure, you got to unpack or whatever, but you're home,
There's a
you're going to
sense of
sleep in your
ease.
bed and all that. What?
A sense of ease.
There's a sense of ease about it and yeah, like a comfort and a belonging, a sense of
Mhm.
belonging as well. Like this is the right,
Mhm.
like that's a good place for me.
That's really wonderful. Yeah, it does sound like equanimous
Yeah.
zone.
I got to be careful because
Yeah, we all, yep.
okay, so intermixed with this, like one of the things that's been showing up, I touched on this I think a little bit last week, but it's still there, is this sort of like, oh yeah, okay, so I'm good. I don't really actually have to do anything. But I've been reflecting on joyful effort, where I'm like, no, like I'm so happy that this is what's going on that I'm like, I want to keep going, And it's not neurotic, it's not compulsive, it's not anything. It's just steady, but it is joyful, daily practice, working, doing mind training, doing the whole thing, walking the path, right? Like I'm like, there's a slight temptation. I think it is actually, I'm glad you brought up the boredom thing because I think that what's happened is a few times I've sort of been like, oh, I'm not like as stimulated as like as I kind of am used to wanting to be. And there is this sort of like, what can I do? And then I just remember, I'm like, all the things you've done to stimulate yourself or understimulate yourself or whatever, none of them lasted. Most of them came with side effects, you
Right.
know.
Right.
And then I'm just sort of like, and it's not a negative resignation, it's just an acceptance. Like, right, yeah, yep,
Yep, for sure.
yep. Let me just keep doing the thing that works.
Right. Well, I wonder too, like, if there's some difference between the word like happiness and joy. Maybe not necessarily in like the
Yeah.
way that it's used in Buddhism, like in our prayers, but in kind of like, Western culture, it seems like there's
Yeah.
kind of a difference between happiness and joy, where like happiness is kind of like this, external, what I'm responding in a way because I got something I want or I like it. Whereas joy is kind of like this deeper, more stable, a little bit more peaceful, I feel like, connection with the world and with our loved ones and others.
Yes, yes. I
Does
think
that seem right?
you nailed it. I think that's what I mean is like all kinds of stuff, both positive and negative has been going on. The
Yeah.
causes for happiness have been here and the causes for unhappiness have been here.
Hmm.
Right? They're here, but that steady state that I'm talking about is not terribly affected by that. The joy that you're talking about, that's relatively constant. That's that higher baseline.
Mm.
But then there, and that's where there's like little like up little mini peaks, right? Where I'm like, ah, happiness, you know. And then
Uh-huh.
there's a little, then there's a little like, ah, yes, anxiety and depression, right?
Yeah.
Like, but not like, I don't just like, yeah, yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Huh. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And how do you notice how it's affecting your training, or is you just kind of just chilling?
I no, I don't know how it's really affecting my training. I think that it's actually given way to more spaciousness in my training. So again, we touched on this a little bit last week. You were talking about how, you were having a hard time meditating in the mornings and that sometimes you just like will read instead, you know? And it's been like that for me too, where
Mhm.
like before I had this like real kind of compulsive, like I have to, there was this tightness, you know? And now like I'm comfortable actually being like, no, I'm cool. It's actually not, I'm not in a space right now to meditate, but I can read my, my Lam Rim book,
Mhm.
right now. I have a cup of tea and read my Lam Rim book and, reflect on that. And then I'll meditate. Like, but there's like it's less neurotic, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm still full of neuroses, don't get me wrong, but like my practice is less sort of like impulsive, compulsive, whatever. Like it's this just like, yeah, like steady,
Yeah.
spacious.
It's not that it has to be this way
No.
and I have to do it this certain way, otherwise it's not meditation.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Exactly. And I gotta say that spaciousness, that flexibility has allowed me to practice, I think, more and better because
Yeah.
it's actually more joyful. So all of the practices, the mantra recitations, the reading, the meditation, all of that, it is more meaningful because it's like it's enjoyable to do, right? It's like I'm doing it for like I recognize why I'm doing it. I know that I'm in it for the long haul and like I don't know, there's just more joy in it. Even like, we like Vajrasattva sort of four opponent powers, right? Reflecting on misdeeds or mistakes, right? Which
Mm.
can seem sort of negative,
Mhm.
like when described. Even that is like this real joyful, it's like taking a shower, it's
Yeah,
just like real nice. Like, I'm just, clean, nice, you
totally.
know?
Yeah.
Like, like, yeah, I don't know. I love taking showers,
Oh
right?
yeah, me
I
too.
love it, right? And some people, it's a chore. Like, you got to do it. It's unpleasant, whatever. Ah. And I'm just like, I feel like it's like that, where like none of it's a chore, none of it's an obligation. I'm not doing it. I am doing it for others, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not doing it for others, right? Like it's
Hmm.
like I'm doing this. This is my practice. It's, and it brings me great happiness, great peace, contentment, all of that. And I also know it won't be like this forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I'm excited to hear about, yeah, just your ongoing journey.
Just steady as
Right?
she goes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at. Nice, nice and steady. Yeah.
Cool.
Tell me about you.
Yeah, today I'm also feeling some just kind of steadiness and sense of ease. And with things that oftentimes would make me anxious in the past. And so that's kind of interesting to see and just be like, oh, okay, it's not affecting me in that same way. So that feels really peaceful and kind of exciting. And I've been yeah, just a little bit easier on myself. It's interesting how we're in some ways similar, but I've been a lot easier on myself in terms of like not feeling like I have to sit and do 24 minutes in the morning. This morning I got up and I did some Tara mantras after doing some prayers um, and I'm going to do my 24-minute sit after we talk today. And that feels fine. And last night I went out to the beach and then it felt so much I was just in it, right? And so I was like, I'm gonna go longer than I normally do. And so I think it's very similar, right? Where it's like, okay, when I loosen up that really tight kind of like uh I don't know, just like very methodical mind that I can have at times, it does allow for more joyful practice and more practice in general. Um, and I've noticed, yeah, today, like, I had a feeling arise in response to something that, like I said, would normally make me anxious. But what I did that was different was I just really observed, which is funny because we've talked about that strategy many times, but I don't use it very often.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe I'll do something like say mantras, or like do a guru yoga practice or something. Um, but this was just like there's nothing here that's going to harm me. I don't need to try and uh, get it to go away. So I just felt it, and I think that that was a big reason why I didn't, react in the same way that I normally would. Is because I could feel that I could have the feeling, and it's not actually going to do anything to me. The only thing that like does anything to me is what I think about the feeling,
Right.
and what that makes me do. So it was just like, okay, yeah, I'm doing what we've been saying is so helpful to do.
Yeah.
I'm also doing what I as a therapist encourage people to do,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it was really
Physician,
good.
heal thyself.
Right, I know. um so yeah, that felt really good. And yeah, training, like I said, is just a little bit easier. And I also, maybe like a week ago, I was feeling a little bit like, gosh, I feel disconnected. I'm uh, just feeling like I'm kind of grinding my gears in the training or whatnot. And so I really just sat kind of like with my picture of Lama and did some Tara mantras. And it's very helpful for me to think about our teachers' journey and other teachers' journeys, and to really think about what they renounced to be where they are. Um, and it's quite incredible, right? Because, our teacher was, grew up in a very wealthy family and could have easily gone that direction, right? And he didn't, and to just really feel like, oh yeah, that is actually what happiness is the freedom of that choice, and engaging with something much, much deeper. And so that helped me a lot to be like, okay, I feel reconnected, right? I'm, this incredible gift that, our teachers are offering us. That really inspires me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I just a little bit of reflection on our teacher's qualities, life story, mannerisms, the way that he's really a wonderful example of sort of the six perfections, right?
Yeah,
Just those kinds of reflections, honest reflections. I love that part of it too. Like I'm not like when looking at it, like really looking at it, like I'm not bullshitting myself. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I'm not creating some kind of a mythic, entity to like observe religiously or something. It's not like that. It's like a real genuine, like just
yeah,
look at this person. Yeah. I had an experience kind of similar the other night I was with some friends who are not Buddhist, but they, are they're aware of my practices or some of them,
Yeah.
and they were like, so this guru thing, like, what's it like? Is he, they were sort of asking me some questions, and it was
Yeah.
interesting because at first I was kind of like, oh no, oops, like no one's ever actually really like questioned me on this, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I was like, ah, fudge, it sounds a little weird, doesn't it? And it sounds weird to me too. And so then, but then I was like, nah, just, I was like, just like reflect and talk about your actual experiences. And in doing so, it was really neat. Like, I don't know what their take on it was, but like for myself, I was like, yeah, damn Skippy. Like that's what this relationship is. It's very real, very super genuine, and it's based upon my own observations of this
Yeah.
this wonderful wonderful spiritual friend of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's so delightful, huh?
yeah, yeah, he's a great meditation object.
Yeah. I'm glad that you could share that with folks. I know that that's a vulnerable place
Yeah,
sometimes to be
yeah,
like, oh yeah, this thing that I do all the time and it's kind of like my orientation. You don't really know about it. And I'm like,
right.
how do I even begin to describe?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
especially because I totally get skepticism in this area.
yep,
I can actually even appreciate the cynicism, the
me
doubt,
too.
sort of the mockery, that like all of it, right? I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. That's why I was like, when they asked me about it, I was like, oh, oh. And then I was just like, no, but it's true. It's genuine. It's real.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? Or should we connect with our other teachers, do some Lojong training,
Heck yeah.
the
Let's do
words of
it.
the masters?
Give me just a sec here.
Yeah. Drink some bubbly water.
Which flavor is it?
It's Waterloo Black Cherry. And
Oh, that's a good one.
I love black cherry. This
Yeah.
one tastes slightly medicinal,
Uh,
which is a turnoff. But I've gotten used to it and now it's not so bad.
Waterloo is not yet a sponsor of the show, uh, but I was drinking the summer berry earlier
Oh
today,
yeah?
and that was delightful.
Good. Yeah. No, typically I'm into it. All right. 55. Find freedom through investigation and examination. Say Chilbu Choki Gyaltsen says, first, investigate which affliction is most dominant in your mind and earnestly apply its specific antidote, striving hard to subdue the affliction. Then analyze the way deluded mental projections arise in relation to the objects that act as their bases. By applying the antidotes, you reduce the force of the afflictions or prevent their arising. By repeatedly thinking, from here on, I will never allow my mind stream to be tainted by these afflictions, you cultivate familiarity with the protective armor for the future. Thus, with these twin methods for applying antidotes to past and future afflictions, strive diligently to eliminate the afflictions.
Mind, that's the core of mind training, isn't it?
Right.
Right? Like that's it. Look at it.
Yeah.
What is it? What are the afflictions? How are they coming to be? What are the like I like this part a lot. I like there's a couple of different aspects to it that I really enjoy. One of which is the sort of deconstructionism inherent in how the projections arise in relation to the objects. That aspect of it, the deconstruction of the objects, that's like the Shantideva thing, right? Where he's
Mm,
like, oh yeah, so you're lusting after these people, you just, oh, you so badly want to like kiss their face, and oh, you want to touch them and all that. Well, now what about like when the vultures are pecking out their look
right.
at them, they have been thorough, now they're really naked. What do you think about that?
Yep.
I know that's a bit gruesome, but like that kind of like because we we're delusional, right? Like our this sort of our afflictions are causing distortion such that we're not seeing things clearly, right? We've overemphasized the positive or negative qualities, or we're not even observing it at all, right? We're in ignorance. And so like it really like this balancing act of like seeing like, oh wow, I have gone to kind of an extreme now, right? Like I've overinflated the positive qualities of human bodies, or I've overinflated the positive qualities of medicinal plants or
Yeah, right.
whatever, right?
Right. No, for sure.
You know, and so then being like, well, let's really look at this thing, right? And how's it affecting you? And then this other aspect of it, this the future part of it, I think that's like the four opponent powers, right? Like the aspect of it where you're like looking at it, you're seeing the mistakes you've made, you know, and then being like, damn, I am not gonna do that. Right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
really, really don't want to do that. I don't want to have my mind stream tainted by this crap.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with that one, too, like kind of looking into the future and the kind of like doing your best not to repeat those actions. It's helpful for me, like I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna kill a human, right? In this life, like that's definitely not my plan. But sometimes I kill bugs accidentally,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that happens. And or like things like yeah, sometimes maybe I'll tell a little white lie.
Yeah.
Or I'll be, kind of lazy with my practice, right? Not really applying myself.
Yeah.
And so with things like that where I'm like, oh, it's a really common habit pattern. Not necessarily lying anymore, that's gotten to be something that I I rarely do. I'm not going to lie and say that I never do it because there's times with exaggeration or whatnot. Um, but with things that are more like entrenched habit patterns, I try and do the thing of like, you know what, for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to do my
Yeah.
best not to engage in this. Or, for the next 24 hours,
Yeah.
I'm going to do my best not to get angry at drivers in front of me or not to get annoyed with someone who does something differently than I would want them to do. Right. So it's like a little bit of gentleness, I think is very helpful for also for getting familiar with like that as a practice. Because yeah, I know like I can't just go from uh one thing to being like perfectly good at it, right? I think most of us can't. And so it's very compassionate to say, I'll just try it for a day. Right?
Yeah.
Like I'm just
Yeah.
gonna try it for a day. Um so yeah, I think for some people it's really helpful to say, from here on, I will never allow my mind stream to be tainted by these afflictions. Whereas for me, I kind of have to say, I'm gonna do my best,
Right.
my very best to not have my mind stream tainted by these afflictions. And if I do these, I will do my best to, repair.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I understand what you're saying. And so sometimes it's time based, but sometimes, as you pointed out, it's also sort of a recognition of sort of degrees of severity of affliction and how they
Right.
manifest. That's actually what I was going to say about one of the things that I find really kind of fun and frustrating about mind training is how it's just peeling back these layers, right? Like how there's like, when we first start, there's this gross level, right? And it like the gross sort of manifestations of our afflictions, and
Right.
then we do a lot of work, and we drop those habits and those we think we drop the pattern, but then we go through another cycle, and whoop, there it is. It's just showing up in a slightly different way. Yeah, okay, so maybe you're not squishing, you're not killing rats in rat traps anymore or whatever, but you still aggressively swatted at that mosquito. Oh no. What about, when you try to kill a thought, I'm just saying like it
Uh,
just like the pattern of wanting to just kill or stop
Eliminate.
something, eliminate a thing, right? Like it's that's going to take a while to go away, right? Yeah, you just keep working at it. But so like I like what you're saying about like there's the time-based part of it, but this other part is this like recognition, like my mind stream is tainted by these afflictions, these habit patterns of, these patterns of whatever, yeah, habit. Um, and they're going to continue to manifest, but I'm going to keep sort of like working with them and ease it, right? And it's fun, but it's frustrating too.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. Oh, good. Let's see. What's this
Ooh,
bronze
what
fella?
is this?
You know what? I think we've had this one recently, didn't we?
Agmo Drupa Dorje Gyalpo. Kind
They're
of like
familiar.
I feel like he looks like a superhero to me.
Yeah. Yeah, big time.
Yeah, I think it's like a little bit the robe is kind of cape-like, and it's because it's metallic. And I love his expression.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's cool.
Do you think the bowl, there used to be a bowl there in his hand?
Huh?
I
Good
wonder,
picture. Yeah.
there's a lot of this statues and stuff that are were kind of taken from their original locations have like a foot missing or something, or like a hand
Yeah.
because that's where it was connected
Yeah.
to something else. So I'm curious if maybe a bowl was
You can certainly
procured.
picture a bowl there, huh?
They certainly could, yes.
Uh,
Cool.
neat.
Alrighty. Great.
That makes me
Well, my
happy.
friend, let's talk about happiness.
Yeah. You want to talk a little bit about the article that inspired this?
Yeah, I'd love to. So yeah, again, the article, the title of it is Our Idea of Happiness Has Gotten Shallow. Here's how to deepen it. And the author is Kwame Anthony Appiah for the New York Times Magazine, and he writes about ethics, and he's also a professor of philosophy. So yeah, a guy that's, thinking about this stuff quite a bit, right? And teaching it. And I thought it was a really well done article. I recommend checking it out. And he talks quite a bit about the origin and kind of transformation of the word happiness, and how the definition has kind of changed over time.
Yeah, it's
Um,
evolved for
it's really
sure.
evolved, and kind of what that reflects about our history and society at the time, and what that means for us on a personal and collective level. Um, and I actually didn't know before reading this article that the word happiness didn't enter the English language until the 15th century.
It's kind of wild to think about, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like what words were being used before? Yeah.
Mirth,
Mirth.
merry.
Yeah. But so it's this now, when we think of happiness, it's a pretty like individualistic idea, right? Happiness is something that I have. It's an internal mood state.
Yeah.
Whereas when or kind of earlier philosophy and when the word happiness first arose, it was more about kind of what he describes. He says happiness was understood as a communal project tied to justice and shared flourishing. Over time, it developed into something individual and small. So he's kind of looking at how like happiness used to be this big kind of like it's about the collective. It's about
Right.
what's best for all of us together, what's going to work for the benefit of all, right? And now it's become very small. And so I just found that really fascinating. And of course, we could talk forever about the kind of the history of that, from like, the Greeks really had a lot of kind of ideals about how society really should be built, to emphasize kind of like giving to others, that it's very hard to thrive in a society that's failing most of its people. And so there's like an emphasis on public service, and then kind of uh, as it developed, like with the Enlightenment time, and kind of like the development of nation states, it's the pursuit of happiness becomes like a thing that the state should offer its people. So like the government is now like in charge of providing and offering happiness. And we see that
Life,
in
liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
exactly, we see it in our own constitution, or is it a different document? Declaration of Independence?
Declaration of Independence.
Oh, geez. Okay, cool.
I don't know. I'm not. I don't know. I don't
I
remember
think that
that
makes
well.
sense. I think that makes sense. Um, but yeah, so it's just it's interesting to see like um like these shifts, and so gradually it becomes this kind of private mood rather than like this what he said calls a civic virtue. And then it really becomes just that individualistic definition of happiness just goes into overdrive with like industrial capitalism. Um, and so what he kind of tracks there is that, happiness isn't about amassing wealth. And it's something, the good life is something that you can buy. And so, then it's less about are the people in general taken care of? Is their well-being being met? And it's more about, how much can the individual amass?
Mhm.
Um, how many units of happiness of a good can someone amass? And that's, it's so interesting. You know, I would like to read Karl Marx Capital again. I tried in college, but to kind of also view like kind of overlap this discussion of happiness, and value, like how much happiness is within a certain good, how many units of happiness in a good. I think it'd be kind of an interesting study. But anyways, I know I'm kind of like going off.
Yeah.
But like we see it now, even like I'm a therapist, and I think therapy culture is something that can be kind of problematic and really making it solely about individual happiness. He talks about kind of like the Oprah self-care type
Uh-huh.
era, where it's like, if you can buy the latest sheets that she loves, or like the, face cream, like you're going to be
Right.
all good. Um, so yeah, it really, he's kind of encouraging us to come back to this more connected sense of happiness, this responsibility towards others, which I think just beautifully dovetails with our Buddhist practice.
It certainly does. In fact, one of the things I liked about the article, besides this evolution from like a we-go to an ego, like
Mm.
like a more a general sort of happiness to a very individualistic happiness, I learned a word, uh, eudaimonic,
Oh,
eudaimonic,
yeah.
which I thought was kind of cool. I love learning new words. I don't know if I'm going to be able to like work this one into conversation or not, but
Huh.
so it's like so eudaimonic is like when we're talking about that, that's that uh, like so let's go back to like hedonic, right? So hedonic is like short-term pleasures, like the dopamine hits, is like instant gratifications, right? That's hedonism. And then there's this eudaimonic, which is like about long-term meaning and connection and
Mm.
purpose and things like that. I think it's sort of like what you were talking about earlier about like joy and happiness. I think that oftentimes happiness is oftentimes viewed sort of hedonically, right? And
Hmm,
joy
hmm.
might be a little bit eudaimonic, however you say that. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, and you're right. Like all of this, the conversation does dovetail into sort of Buddhist ideas around happiness, right? Which is a little bit more on that, what do you call it, eudaimonic side.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I like about it is that it's not so it's not this complete like rejection of pleasure and like the happiness, right? There's nothing wrong
Right.
with that. The short-term pleasures and blissful states and all of that. It's just recognizing that they don't last and that it's not good to be attached to them and to chase them.
Yeah. Yeah. And to not make that the central aim of one's life. That'll lead to just unsatisfactoriness
Yeah, yeah. And
in general.
I think, I was reflecting on, I get this sense sometimes when I look at like, never that I know of has there been this immense, like this like massive amount of wealth that's been concentrated into such small hands, right? I mean,
Mm,
certainly wealth concentration has happened before, but also at the same time, we have this amazing rate of the production of consumer goods and things like that, right? And so I think like I sometimes reflect on how people who have unlimited assets, money and power and all of that, how, they appear oftentimes to just go down this sort of the hedonism path, right?
mm,
And that you can see how it then gets like skewed. Like once you've done all the things that give you all the sort of instant pleasures or whatever, that then they start to kind of be like, well, maybe I ought to try some new things that, other people might not do, break some norms and,
right. Yeah.
indulge in things that normally society doesn't approve of. You can kind of like see where that might go, right? Like, and how
Sure.
how unpleasant it might be. And that's, you know,
Yeah.
like I feel like they're like running on the hedonic treadmill at full speed. You know what I
Full
mean?
speed. Yeah, for
Just
sure.
just just chasing it down, but
Yeah.
never ever 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 experiencing that actual sort of that nice even keeled joy, happiness.
Yeah. That's so interesting. That makes a lot of sense to me that like once you've hit, I've had every experience that I could imagine having. I've traveled all over the world. I could buy anything that I want. That could tip into, okay, well, how about just amassing power in various ways? That's a new kind of territory, or treating people as objects, right? Other people do become objects, I think, to the extremely wealthy. Um, so yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I can feel a little bit more compassion, I think, in thinking of it that way, that's really exhausting and probably very sad, right? And
Mhm.
I don't know if they feel that sadness, but I imagine that it creeps up sometimes.
I imagine that maybe it's really layers, got a lot of stuff on top, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, so I conquered space. Oh, but if I just that.
Yeah. Yeah. If I have 15 more kids.
Right, right.
Um, yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, going back to kind of the eudaimonic,
I
is
think
that,
that's how you say it.
yeah.
Eudaimonic? Yeah.
I was thinking too about how like the difference between like hedonism and where it being kind of like the just getting what you can while you can, because you can and you want it and it feels good, versus the eudaimonia, which seems more like it's this developmental thing. It's like I'm going on this kind of path of a little bit slower happiness,
Yeah.
that's about connection and our network with others and seeing each other's successes and failures. And it's like this, I mean, it sounds kind of corny, but it's like the struggle, right? It's like this kind of the struggle of our lives is actually so beautiful. And I think that's a little bit what Eudaimonia is touching on too, I
Yeah,
think.
I think
Is
so
that,
too. I mean, I think that
yeah.
so much of it has to do with really living in harmony with emptiness, interconnected, interdependence, which is a struggle, right? As Sartre
Yeah.
said, hell is others, right? And most of our challenges come from this dualistic sort of framework in which there's a me and there's a them, and we're sort of at odds, right? There are these zero sum games that are being played, and if they get something then I lose something, and like there's this whole sort of trap inherent within all of that that leads to a lot of that struggling, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I think that the sort of a large part of the enlightening process is one of seeing like, yeah, it is difficult. It is actually difficult to live in harmony with other people in samsara, right?
Yeah.
It's quite difficult because, everyone has these afflictions that we were talking about in the Lojong slogans, right? Everyone is sort of doing the same kind of like stuff. They've got this poison, if you will, right? And so like that is really hard, and there is no, like Lama, in one of his talks, I know had mentioned something along these lines. Like it's just the notion that happiness can be found in samsara isn't just it's not that's not a Buddhist thing, right? Like it's
Right.
not gonna you're not gonna find a Buddhist suggesting that that's where happiness is. But the struggle to be in harmony with reality as it is, which includes both nirvana and samsara, right? Like that, yeah. Like it's not the struggling, but the that like walking the path. Sometimes you gotta, sure, right? Sometimes you gotta climb. Sometimes there are obstacles, and overcoming that and walking that path. That's where the development of joy is. That's where I think the real lasting happiness is.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think Lama talks a lot about too that the path is one of friendship. And so that kind of the struggle of the path is something that we don't have to do alone. And I know that this article is really talking about that. That
Right, right.
actually, so much joy is there already in our connections with one another. And from a Dharma perspective, or kind of thinking about our sangha, and just how essential those relationships are. I uh, where I live, my roommates are not Buddhist, which is, it's fine. It's not a problem. Um, but I don't have much of a Buddhist community up here. And so having the connections of the temple in Sacramento have really, I mean, I wouldn't be able to do my practice
Yeah.
without those connections. Um, and so, yeah, I am not a cowboy yogi. I thought,
No,
I thought
no.
at one point that maybe I could be like, just kind of go off, do my own thing. But that doesn't work. Doesn't work for me. I kind of
Mm.
need that like accountability aspect of the friendship, and Sangha is like, yep, I'm showing up every Tuesday, or I'm showing up every Sunday or Thursday, and kind of just doing the thing. Keeps me going.
Without a doubt, I mean, there are no cowboy Buddhas, right? As far as we know, like there's certainly not within our tradition.
Yeah,
Ours is definitely the great all-encompassing vehicle that has everybody in it, right? Uh, we all go at the same time, so to speak. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, I like that aspect of it's weird to me. One of the things that I think is kind of interesting, and this is directly related to that article that you're talking about. So on the one hand, I think I can't quite remember the framework. They were talking about a TV show and stuff. I don't
Hmm.
exactly, but basically there were these two characters, right? One who was saying, like, to be happy, it's really just about acquisition, getting what you want in this world. And then the other one was like sort of like, oh no, it's all about letting go and renunciation
Hmm.
and maybe even asceticism or something like that, right?
Hmm.
And I think it's kind of interesting that like what they're talking about there is really sort of the two extremes, just like in Buddha's own life story, right? Where he had all this material wealth and these hedonistic pleasures and stuff, and then he was like, oh, but that's like it's not it. It's not doing the trick. And then he goes the other extreme and like drops it all, and it's just like no, and into these ascetic practices. And then he's like, no, that's not where it's at either. There's this like middle way, right? And I think that that's one of the things that I find really kind of eye-opening about the practices and the path that we're on is that it does not involve a dropping of the self. So we, in the sense, like, yeah, anatta, there's no inherent self existing from its own side here.
Mm,
True. But it doesn't mean that we drop ourselves, right? We are an incredibly important thread in this giant tapestry, but it's all
yeah,
about weaving it together. As you're saying, it takes community, it takes all of us doing this stuff to weave that tapestry together. And so it's not about it's I love the fact that it doesn't have like a dropping of the self, just a
yeah,
realization of the emptiness of self.
right, right. Well, I remember one time Lama saying about, Shambhala, which is like the enlightened society.
Yeah.
That's what we're aiming for, right? But that like there's gonna be lawyers in
I
Shambhala.
remember that too.
And I was like, really?
Yeah, yeah, coming from so as a I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, right? And they have this view of a paradise earth that they're going to live in where, oh, the lions and the sheep are going to lie down with each other and no one's ever going to hurt. Nothing bad is ever going to ever happen ever again. And that just doesn't, it's just kind of like, wow, how in the hell is that supposed to work, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But then it was such an eye opener when Lama's like, so do you think in Shambhala they're gonna have do they need attorneys? Damn right they need attorneys because there's still conflict.
yeah, yeah. I know, it's so funny. So that's another part I think that like this article kind of suggests too is like, life devoid of conflict or difficulty is not happiness.
No, right.
Um, yeah, we kind of this is just how life, especially life in samsara, but just life in general, we are gonna have conflict because we're different.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing.
Oh,
But
yeah.
Shambhala, I think, is like, can we imagine an enlightened way to cope with conflict?
Right.
And that like there's so much energy there, right? Like in having differences, that I think that can really drive society, that can really drive culture, right? Is like
Right.
where we're kind of meeting up against one another. But if we can choose to like find a way to work with that, rather than reject or kind of push back on, then we can really make something together.
Yeah, exactly. Like the like we really like happiness is being really alive.
Yeah,
Right? Being really alive. And I remember one time I was working in North Carolina at this massive, I was liquidating a huge greenhouse. Like it was like this is an operation, the kind that like feeds all the Home Depots and Walmarts and whatever's, right? I mean, this
yeah,
thing's massive. You need like a car just to drive around the greenhouse. It's
wow.
huge, right? And inside like it's just layers of plants and they are on the every aspect of the thing is it's manufactured, right? So the amount of water, the nutrients, the lighting, the airflow, everything is totally calibrated, 100% artificial. These are plants, living breathing plants, right?
Mm,
There are no bugs in there. There's no wind. There's nothing eating at them. There's no conflict. There's no
yeah.
strife. There's no nothing. It's the like Jehovah's Witness paradise, right? Uh,
Right.
and I remember like being up there, like just looking at this endless sea of like kind of perfect plants that had no problems and just being like, this is not life.
Yeah.
And realizing that it's actually, what modern sort of marketing, capitalistic marketing sort of feeds us is like, that's it. Right? Like that's it. When you just have Uber delivering the food at just the right time and you get the right hits of dopamine at just the right time and then you get the right antidepressant and the right anti-anxiety and the right this and the right that. Then if you just it's calibration. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the reason you're unhappy is just because you just need a little bit more of this and we got just the thing for you. Here's a therapy, here's a medicine,
Right.
here's a new show, here's some new entertainment, here's some whatever, right? And it's wonderful for marketers. It's been
Yeah.
fantastic for them, but it's not alive. It's
Yeah.
it's not living. And I remember when I had that experience in the greenhouse of being like, I would prefer to be out in like if I was a plant, I want to be the, like, I'm totally okay. I'd rather be the one that's springing up in the concrete, right? The
Yeah.
one little flower that found that tiny little crack in the concrete and it's just like, yeah, I'm making it. I'm doing it. Like, I would rather be that weed in the concrete than to be the beautiful, like, begonia or whatever the hell it was in the greenhouse, you know?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's just all like puppetry, right? Like that's what I end up feeling like when I'm trying to do the calibration thing, is that I'm just kind of like on some strings and I'm trying to like something's trying to
Yeah.
like pull me to get a different way, and
Yeah.
I'm being controlled.
I just
Uh,
had a little epiphany that what
yeah.
you were talking about. I remember Lama saying at one point something to the tune. I think it was just like in Darshan or something, where he was like, "Yeah, everybody just is always fucking with themselves. Just,
Yeah.
just stop it. Just stop it, right?" And when you what you were talking about this calibration, I think that what Matthew was saying about it feels good to be home. The home is uncalibrated. It's not, it's
Mm.
just sort of, like there's not like not an intentional trying to make it something other than it is. It just is what it is. Ah,
Yeah.
I'm just doing
Yeah.
what I'm doing. Ah, it's
Right.
easy. Like, I mean, sometimes it's hard, but it's
Yeah,
easy because it just is.
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, like if you do like engage with the TV show or an antidepressant, it's like, yeah, not having in mind the like that I'm going to somehow find the right state because of this thing external to me.
right.
Just recognizing it for what it is, um, rather than this kind of that's now going to allow me to be happy.
And I think it's important to stress, just because of the nature of what we're talking about here, that um, there isn't anything wrong with people wanting to be happy, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with these attempts at calibrating things, the exploration to see what works and what doesn't, more power to you. I hope everybody that you find the things that make you happy in this life. It's just, at least in my experience, it hasn't, as you pointed out, has not been external.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing outside of me, even our precious Lama, right? Nothing outside of me has yielded the happiness, right?
Right.
Like it is like self-work. It's something we have to do. No one's going to push us off the diving board. The happiness is springing and jumping ourselves, right? And having that
Mm-hmm.
experience. And there's
Right.
something really amazing about that's living, that's life, right?
For
That
sure.
happiness.
For sure. Yeah, I think maybe what I'm starting to see some of those like calibrations when I can do it in the right way is when I'm trying to get my driver's license self, as Lama says. I'm trying to get that self in a place where I can actually do Dharma training. So rather than having it be about like, I think I can get happy through this, it's more about, you know what, this is going to stabilize me enough so that I can do my Dharma training. And
Mm,
so there's various calibrations like, I'm not going to go on like a crazy diet. I'm eating healthily, but
yeah.
I'm not trying to lose weight because I want to look differently. I'm eating because I
Right?
want to be healthy and do my Dharma training, right? It's kind of like thinking of those things more in that way, to
Exactly.
a lot
Right.
healthier,
Right. Why
right?
am I doing this? Well, what's the underlying purpose? A Dharma training for the benefit of all beings so that we can become Buddhas to be of greatest benefit to everyone, including ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it.
That's it. Simple,
Oh,
just not easy.
simple, not easy. Yeah. Daniel, this has been
Mm,
lovely. I do feel happy.
me too. I feel happier. I wasn't unhappy when I got here, but I feel happier.
Me too.
This is a little like ding up, little
Yeah.
a
Oh, yeah,
positive,
yeah.
like ding,
Yeah.
like just a little.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Well, everybody, thanks so much for watching. If you can make a donation at Lions